What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Young Rich Pod. Check that out. We just changed and made it our official name. It's going to be Young Rich Pod going forward. So be expecting that name to be a little bit different. No name podcast. I mean, although it sounded pretty cool, there was just a lot of people with the same no name podcast like thing. So here I am. I have to come up with a legitimate name that's different from everybody else. And what better way to do it than putting my, Instagram socials, my gamer tag, anything possible or correlated to myself is YoungRich831. My socials, my Twitter, my Snapchat, my Instagram, anything I got, PSN, all this different stuff. So might as well be one of those guys who just throws your name on it and put podcast at the end of it, which it sounds good to me. Young Rich Pod, it sounds a bit better because it has my name in there. So when you're listening to it, you know exactly you're going to be listening to Young Rich for the day. And I couldn't be happier with what's going on and going forward. But with that being said, obviously, again, the Eastern Conference Finals, Western Conference Finals, the Conference Finals is beginning tonight. We will be discussing a lot about basketball. This will be a majority basketball episode, as in, it's basically all basketball right now. You have the NFL offseason. You have little things you could really talk about and discuss, but I'm not there yet. And there's just so much to talk about in the NBA, in the basketball world, WNBA, all these different things. So today is going to be a fun episode. Today, we're going to get started with predicting the Eastern Conference, Western Conference Finals. All right, and we're going to start with the Eastern Conference Finals, the ECF, right? You have Boston going against Indianapolis tonight. Indiana. I don't know why I can keep doing that, but going against Indiana Pacers tonight. And listen, the Boston Celtics are a huge favorite in this series, as they should be. They're the more dominant team, even without KP. You're looking at a team that has struggled to win on the road in the playoffs, right? And specifically, you have more to do with Tyrese Halliburton struggling on the road in the playoffs, right? You haven't seen him be as aggressive, and you haven't seen him really, come through in these opening games of a series, right? And you've seen him steal a game on the road against Milwaukee when Dame was playing out there without Giannis, so it was a bit of a reason for that, right? And then you see them win Game 7 on the road in New York, right, against a team that's just running on fumes. These guys are falling apart as we speak, and it was just, one of those situations where you just got the better of them. You're healthier than the other team, and that's just how it goes, and that's sometimes how everything pans out. We can't control some of these things. So again, the only absolute way Indiana has a chance to compete in the series is if Tyrese Halliburton looks like he did in Game 7, right? And I'm not expecting him to go out here and if, every single game of the series to go out there and give you 30 and 7 like he did to close out, right? But I'm expecting him to be out here to be aggressive and to just take advantage offensively, right? You are capable of scoring. We've seen you as, when it's necessary, you start to get in your bag a little bit more, but we need to see you from game 1, from the jump, from the tip-off to the end of the series to go out there to be aggressive, because you cannot afford to give away games due to you putting up 6 or 7 shots in a game, right? You're playing the Boston Celtics, the number 1 rated team in the regular season, the most wins in the NBA season. You did beat them in the play-in, right? You gave them an upsetting loss. You had a couple games in the regular season where it was kind of like, who's going to score the most points. All offense, no defense, typically how Indiana likes to play, right? But so you have a bit of hope. You've played this team before. You've played them multiple times. You know what they like to do. Obviously, defensively, they are going to get after you. Drew Holiday, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. These guys are going to get after you defensively. They are one of the best defensive rated teams in the league in the playoffs as well, And so you just have to go out there. You have to be aggressive. You cannot allow Pascal Siakam to be your number 1 option in this series. You just can't. There's nothing wrong with Pascal Siakam being a number 2 or every other night having a great game, right? Okay, but again, you have to go out there and you have to be aggressive, and there's no better way to come out here and start the series 1-0. Like, this is your bet. Listen, you have a better chance of stealing game 1 tonight than you do game 2, right? Because the fact you have no KP, right? You don't have that elite. Elite. Can we say elite? I'm gonna say a good rim protector in KP. You won't have him in there today, right? His ability to space the floor. You'll still have Al Horford, Sam Hauser, and these other guys, but it's not going to be the same as it would be with KP in there, right? So that gives you a little bit of leeway. Spacing is going to be a little bit tighter, a little bit more I can't even think the word because I'm struggling right now, but a little bit more contested, a little bit more crowded, right? So you have an opportunity to steal game one, right? Because you've seen Boston specifically have moments against Cleveland where Jason Tatum's not shooting very well or Jaylen Brown's not shooting well. You have moments where you can steal games from Boston, but you have to be able to take advantage of that. And being Tyrese Halliburton, being the guy, the point guard of the future, someone who was an all NBA selection halfway through the season before the All-Star break. Like, you were getting that type of respect, that type of demand. People were watching your game. Everyone was loving the way you were playing. And so now you have a chance to go out there and go prove a name for yourself, right? Go prove to these people that it wasn't the injuries that allowed you to win these games. It was the fact that you guys were just meant to be here, okay? Including me. Prove me wrong, because I was definitely one of those guys who had no faith in these guys to even make it here, all right? But respect when it is given. I mean, I saw a little graphic the other day where the 4 teams in here, all their main superstars are under 25, 26. The oldest one in this whole little series is Jason Tatum, and he's still young. Right? A very accomplished young player, but he's still very, very young. Anthony Edwards is the youngest of the group, youngest of the bunch. Then you have Luka, then you have Tyrese, so this is a great new breath of fresh air for our era. We've seen KD go down, we've seen Steph Curry go down, we've seen all these other legends go down. So now let the youth come in, let these younger teams fight for something meaningful. So a lot of these teams are going to get their first chip. One of the teams is going to get their first chip for that their core of players. So this is going to be something great to see. But key to victories for Boston. I mean, listen, Jason Tatum, you have to come out, you have to perform. You can't afford to get have a struggle game 1 to game 2. You can't come out here and struggle from the 3. You've got to come out here, you've got to assert your dominance. Now is your time to go out there and dominate, right? It's the Eastern Conference Finals. You didn't get here last year because you guys fell short and got eliminated by Miami. You did get there last year, but you got eliminated by Miami, right? So now you have a chance to avenge yourself and recreate a storyline for yourself. Recreate the only story that we have of you when you went to the finals and you blew chunks. You weren't ready. You were scared. You were nervous. You didn't meet expectations when you played the Golden State Warriors, right? And we've seen that. So go recreate your storyline. Go create a new message of what this team's about. You have the opportunity to do so. And Jaylen Brown can do Jaylen Brown-like things, but you have to be Jason Tatum at the end of the day. And Jason Tatum did answer the bell when we said we needed to see him score more, right? He was very inefficient, but playing every other aspect of basketball correctly, defensively, playmaking, rebounding, all the other things. So, and he did answer the call. So here's your call, right? And against the Indiana Pacers in particular, you should really go out there and just eat. Like, you should dominate in this matchup, especially with no KP. You should go out there and assert your dominance, right? And listen, because you have all the talent in the world around you. Again, Drew Holiday, one of the best perimeter defenders. Derek White, one of the best perimeter defenders. He's up there getting all-star nods. Like, he's playing phenomenal. He's shooting at a remarkable clip this playoff run, right? And then you have Jaylen Brown. You have these guys, KP when he's healthy, Jason Tatum. You have all these good pieces, and you have the best opportunity to go out here and win. And now's your window to do it, right? You had the best of luck in this whole playoff run. No Donovan Mitchell, no Jared Allen, Karis LeVert, no Game 7. Although he's not like the most important piece, still someone you didn't have to go against. You didn't have to go against Jimmy Butler, right? He was injured. You didn't have to go against Terry Rozier, which just would have added something else to it, right? But, you had all these benefits. And then, the 76ers, right? They were just banged up. Joel Embiid was banged up, clearly. And then the Knicks, another team who we thought can get scrappy with you, right? And then, again, they're just too many injuries, wounded, running on no fumes and all this stuff. So now is your best chance to go out here and win a chip. And now, after all this, you even got the blessing of not having to play the defending champs, Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets at all. They took care of them. Minnesota took care of them. So there is no better time to come out here and win a championship, right? You have the pieces, you have the players, and now the question comes down to, is Jason Tatum going to perform? Is he going to elevate his teammates? Is he going to be that guy for the rest of the series, right? For the rest of this playoff run, right? Because you need him to be that guy when it comes to this level of basketball, this high intensity basketball that we're going to get in the conference finals and so on in the finals, right? So again, you have to be able to come out here and, perform, right? And then this leads to the next question, something that I've been hearing all over Twitter, all over social media, and you've been hearing it for months now, right? Is Jason Tatum under the most pressure to win a championship right now, right? And I would say, due to the fact that he has the most success when it comes to the postseason, being to the Eastern Conference Finals so many times, being to the finals, right? You at a very young age, you and Jaylen Brown excelled expectations, and you were meeting LeBron James in the ECF, going to game sevens. And so you've had this experience, you have the playoff experience. You've won games, you've been to the finals, you know what it's like to lose, you know what not to come into a playoff game looking for, and all these different things. And now you have one of the deepest rosters you've ever had, right? Assuming we get a healthy KP as well, and you should really, I think it is a win now for Jason Tatum. You're missing all those superstars that I just already discussed. Luka is still very young, right? That whole Dallas team is still very young. Minnesota, a very young superstar in Anthony Edwards, right? Like, we've seen a little bit of inconsistency against Denver, but it's just the fact that he is young, right? He has takeover ability, but he's young. So this is your time. You're the veteran in the last 4 teams remaining. Like, you are the top dog. You guys are the ones favored to win. You're expected to win. And now the question is Jason Tatum going to show up? Is this a must-win for the Boston Celtics going forward? And I'm going to say yes, because there is no better opportunity to come out here and win a championship than right now, right? Like Minnesota on the other side, I'm not too worried about them winning a championship right now. Why? Because they're a young team. Anthony Edwards is barely blossoming into the player he's going to become, and he's still going to get better, right? We're projecting that, and they may take a humongous jump this year, so I'm not expecting them. One year they finally made out the first round, and next year they win. I'm not going to be upset or feel any type of way if they don't win a championship, right? A little bit similar things to Luka Doncic. In Dallas, they have a better chance to win now than possibly any other year than they've had. So you've got to take advantage of it, But again, if you're looking at this Boston Celtics team, and then you look, and then let's just say, hypothetically, you do fall short in the Eastern Conference Finals to the Pacers. You don't even get back to the dance in the finals. You don't even go meet any of those other guys in the West. You fall short against the Indiana Pacers. You don't even make it back to the finals, right? That is the clear breaking point for the Boston Celtics. If you lose to the Indiana Pacers in this conference finals, you are going to have a lot of questions and a lot of issues this offseason. This is going to be the time where you finally hear, and I believe, serious talks about trading one of your superstars and moving some key pieces around, right? Because there's just no reason for you not to win this series against Indiana. You're a better team. You're more talented. You have more depth, right? They are missing one of their best pieces in Benedict Mathurin. KP, when he's healthy, just helps everything flourish. You have 2 of the top 25, top 30 players in the league, Tatum and Jaylen Brown. You have KP, who's had a great year this year, 2 of the best perimeter defenders to get up in there and smother the Indiana Pacers. You have the team, you have the coach, you have the players, and now you have to rise to that superstar level and elevate your team. Because if you do not, you fall short against the Indiana Pacers, there should be trade talks. There should be other discussions about how you got to restructure this team and move pieces around, because there is no reason you can't. This is your best chance to win a championship, right? And if you don't even make it to the finals, you lose to the Indiana Pacers, there's red flag after red flag, question mark after question mark, And then you start to bring up the fourth quarter efficiency for Jason Tatum this year. And then you start to talk about the Boston Celtics being such a jump shot reliant team that when the jump shot is not falling, and you shoot so many threes, why are you allowing these teams to stay into the game? You know what I'm saying? You're big. You could finish around the rim. You could drive on this low, undersized Indiana team, right? So this would be all these questions and all these discussions about the Boston Celtics moving forward. And when you sit here and you look at yourself, you look at Jason Tatum with all the criticism that he's had in his career, right? About him, if he can get his team over the hump, being the number one guy. You've heard these questions. You've seen the issues, right? A young team going against Golden State, right? So this is the best year for you to win it. You've got to, figure some stuff out, because next year is only going to get tougher in the East. You're going to get a healthy Giannis, Damon Bucks, right? Whether they make a move or not. You're going to have Denver coming back with I assume, a bit of a vengeance, and it may be a retool. You're going to have Embiid and Maxey coming back. Maxey, whether he goes back to the Sixers or somewhere else, he's going to be in that discussion, right? And then Miami, they want to compete. They still have Jimmy Butler, they still have these pieces. Bam Adebayo still at his best right now. Tyler Hero's at his best right now. So you have teams that are coming to try to get vengeance. And Jimmy Butler's already said it. He doesn't think you guys would have beat him if he was healthy. Okay? So this is your time. This is your time to come up and take what's yours. Go take a championship. Go make it to the championship first, right? And go dominate in this series. Because if you don't dominate in this series, there will be huge question marks and red flags for this entire Boston Celtics team going into next year. Okay? And then here we get to, right? Obviously, the second conference finals game that we have, series that we have. Excuse my little stutter right there. I'm struggling a little bit, but I'm feeling real good about myself right now. So stutter a little bit. But right, Minnesota versus Dallas. I was speaking about it a little bit briefly previously to get on the Tatum discussion. But listen, this is going to be a fun matchup, right? Because you kind of see the same type of things between Minnesota and Denver, right? You have big, long, lengthy, good defensive-minded wings, right? Jaden McDaniels, Akil Alexander. You have these guys who are going to go out there and defend, and that's exactly what you need when you're playing Dallas, right? And when you look at it from Dallas's POV, now Luka Doncic is going to the conference finals with a defense, a top 5 defense in the regular season and in the postseason. This is 2 great defensive teams, and it really comes down to, what superstar is really going to carry their team to get this win. Because if you look at both these last series, Dallas relied heavy on role players to excel expectations, to blow proportions out of water. You had PJ Tucker having himself a series. You had, Derek Lively having himself an amazing series. You had Derek Jones have himself a remarkable series. 19 points in that game 6, 20 points in that game 6. Okay, Jaden McDaniels, another guy. They said you are not going to have a game where Jaden McDaniels goes for 20, 30 points in game 7, and that's exactly what he does. You had these role players who just are excelling expectations and are doing so much. So which of these superstars, whether it's Kyrie, Luka, Edwards, Cat, which of these guys is going to take their team and put them on their back? Because one of these guys needs to step up and absolutely dominate this series. This series cannot, it can be. You can have role players playing at a phenomenal, efficiency, giving you 15, 16 points every other game. You can't have that. And that's success for winning championships and all this stuff, But you would like to see Luka have a more consistent series, right? Like you've seen him close the series. You'd like to see him start the series that way and maintain that consistency. You'd like to see Kyrie Irving be more aggressive if you are Dallas, and then you start to see, Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns, who had a great game 7, against Denver. He's been playing great. Anthony Edwards, we know what he's capable of on the defensive end and on the offensive end, when it's his night. So again, this team is going to be a great matchup, right? I'm leaning towards Dallas and Kyrie because I think the offensive firepower is just too much. The ceiling and the potential of what Luka and Kyrie can do when they're on any given night, it's just insane. Dude, Luka could give you a 40-point triple-double on every single night. If he's having that type of series, he can do that, right? So I think this team has a bit more offensive firepower that you would need. And on offense, I'm just not sure if Anthony Edwards is ready to be what he needs to be to win, right? Obviously, listen, if you could go out there and play defense like you did against Denver, make Jamal Murray feeling comfortable, like how you were, messing with Aaron Gordon and doing all this stuff defensively, then I'm for it, right? But again, I just think the potential of what Dallas can look like when both of them are clicking at the same time in the same game can just be a lot scarier, right? I trust Kyrie Irving in the clutch. I trust Kyrie Irving to go get himself a bucket. I trust, obviously, Luka to do it, right? Anthony Edwards, I mean, you had a bit of like efficiency issues in a couple games against Denver, which happens. Granted, it happens. It's playoff basketball. It's not regular season stuff, right? So again, I mean, but this team is definitely going to be mixy. I mean, this series is going to be fun, right? I don't really know what to expect. I hope we get like a 7-game series again, because that, I mean, that's obviously the best way to get it. Most basketball, most entertaining storylines and things like that, right? So again, do I think Minnesota is going to go into the series and blow Dallas out like they did to Denver a couple times? No, I don't. I don't think Dallas is going to go, Minnesota is going to go in there and blow them out like that, because I think between Kyrie and Luka, I have a lot of faith in these guys stepping up and helping, carry the load when the other one's struggling, and then also vice versa with Karl Anthony Towns, stepping up when Anthony Edwards is struggling, and the role players excelling and producing, right? So which team gets their role players to continue to produce? Because that plays a crucial point in allowing your superstars not have to go berserk and be, that type of superstar to win games. So, is PJ Washington going to have another great series? Is Derrick Jones going to continue this success shooting the ball in this next series, right? What adjustments are going to be made, and things like that. So we'll definitely see how they play Luka and Kyrie, right? Obviously, I don't think they're going to throw. I mean, I think they could still possibly do what they did to Jokic, which is just throw multiple bodies at Luka, make somebody else beat you, which obviously would allow, Kyrie to kind of do his thing a little bit. But I mean, again, we've also seen against Phoenix where you guys went out there, Minnesota went out there and just manned up against everybody because you trusted your guy on defense better than that guy, right? You did that with KD, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, right? Two of the best scorers in the league, right? So we've seen what's capable. So we'll definitely got to pay attention to how they come out and play this series. What do they go to first? Again, so this series is going to be absolutely amazing. Like, I still am leaning towards the Dallas Mavericks, and I'm going to say the Mavericks in 7, right? Because I think that's defensively both teams, and with the firepower that Anthony Edwards can give you, right? And the way Jaden McDaniels been playing, and the role players, like I've been emphasizing this entire little segment right here, right? So I definitely think this series will go the distance, which is going to be absolutely insane. A Game 7 in Minnesota for the finals, like that would be absolutely insane. It would completely live up to the hype, right? Of these young superstars just having themselves a field day, having themselves a great series. But one of the things I did want to discuss, right, which I heard, shout out to Nick Wright, First Things First and them boys, but is Rudy Gobert. Right, Rudy Gobert. We just watched the whole series where Rudy Gobert was inefficient around the rim, was unable to really consistently give you buckets unless he was wide open on a dunk, right, or anything like that. Like, you put the ball, you make him try to create any bit of shot for himself, it's just not falling, right? You seen him at one little fadeaway, little mid-range, right, shot that he had over Jokic, which was just the luckiest thing I've ever seen in my life, right? I'm sitting here and I'm watching Rudy Gobert. I'm telling my dad, I'm saying, yo, this guy is absolute. He's terrible. He can't score. Don't trust this guy to score offensively, because every time Rudy would have a bucket, make a free throw, whatever, he would walk out like he was the absolute man, right? So I just kept clowning on him, and the next thing you know, he goes, hits a fadeaway mid-range shot, which is absolutely insane, because my dad turns around and starts talking to me, he's like, oh, Rudy Gobert is the best, and all this stuff. So I mean, it was great, but there is huge question marks for Rudy Gobert, right? Because if Rudy Gobert is not giving you anything defensively, what is he really on the floor to do? Because obviously he's not there to create on offense. He's there to be a defensive anchor, right? But then you look at this Dallas team. Yes, they like to run Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively. Whichever one has the hotter hand, whichever one's playing better kind of finishes out the game, right? We've seen them do that against OKC because they had the size advantage. You know that. They struggled with rebounding, so you threw them out there. Derek Lively dominated the glass, especially games 4, 5, and 6. Right? So you have these scenarios where now you have to see what is Jason Kidd going to come out here and do, right? And we've seen, with Max Kleber out there, and they run their little 5 out, right? How the offense can just flourish, how they could dominate teams, right? But then that comes to the realization that you would have to make an adjustment in Minnesota's side, right? Because now you're putting Rudy out there to go cover the 3, and he's having after to clear out on people and guard Kleber, and just who's sitting in the corner or whoever, right? And so then it takes out Rudy in the paint, which allows all these other guys to go to work and things like that. So,
that is something interesting that I really heard when you start to think about it. That could definitely be a scenario. Does Jason Kidd pull it out in game one and make him adjust right away? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe wait till game two or game three back in Dallas. But I would love to see them try to do that. I don't know nothing about coaching basketball, but maybe comes out game one just to start it out, just show them something. Or with the second unit, they put in Kleber and make Rudy Gobert go out there and have to guard the perimeter, and then that could hurt them defensively. And then Rudy Gobert's sitting on the sideline. So again, that's just something I heard that I thought was very interesting, because they could really play with that guy on the perimeter, because we know how he struggles, right? So that would be very interesting, and then you could possibly do some PNRs and pick and pops, make people switch and do all these different things to just get the best matchups for your players. But I think that would be a huge disadvantage, obviously, for Rudy Gobert, and if Dallas can effectively take advantage of that mismatch and that opportunity, and Rudy on the perimeter, I mean, this team would get flowing. The spacing would be elite, and now you're giving Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic this remarkable amount of space. There's nobody sitting in the basket, which means they can go to the basket at will. You have PJ Washington and Derrick Jones doing their thing like they just did. Like, this team could get really scurry, and the offensive firepower would be remarkable. And it's just going to be one of those situations where I'm just so curious on how Minnesota would adjust, right? Obviously, you'd have to possibly move him out and go small ball five, and maybe Cat back at the five like that, but which is also shown to hurt you defensively, So again, it'll just be interesting to see if or when they do pull it out, Dallas pulls out the five out, bring in Kleber. It'd be interesting to see how Minnesota, reacts to that, adjusts to that, and then we go from there. And then so obviously, if you don't listen to the post-game interviews, I'm going to do my best to make sure I take care of you guys and keep you guys updated and in the loop of what's being said in some of these interviews. Because obviously I did want to talk about it. I seen a couple people on Twitter, Knicks fan bases, and them discussing it. Twitter was going crazy after that Game 7 versus the Pacers. But, you had Knicks. Jalen Brunson said this was not a good season for the New York Knicks, right? It was a disappointing season for the New York Knicks, right? Which, again, I'm sitting here and I'm happy that Jalen Brunson, out of all people, said that, right? Because not once has he ever complained about anything, or complained about the refs, or complained about an injury, or ever showed you he was injured, right? He would get knocked down, he'd come up menacing a little bit, grimacing, and then get back to playing and hooping, and he hooped, he delivered. He was the best player on this team. He was answering when you needed him to. He showed up in the biggest of moments, and he got you to Game 7 of the second round. Right? And if you just had a little bit more health on your side, you could be walking into the Eastern Conference Finals against Boston right now, right? Like, you are that type of team. And then obviously you look at this team and you start to question, Tom Thibodeau playing all these minutes, how much of a factor was that to Jalen Brunson breaking down, to Josh Hart, to OG Anunoby, to Mitchell Robinson, to all these other guys, and just wearing and tearing down, right? And obviously it does play a huge piece and huge role, because not everybody's built to do that, right? You had Josh Hart do that for the first 8 games of the playoffs, right? Jalen Brunson do damn near the same, right? And then you looked at, for example, Nikola Jokic, right? Nikola Jokic, a guy who you've never seen him play that many minutes in a game, right? Game 7, he goes out there, he plays 46 minutes, and you could tell he was gassed. On the offensive end, he was gassed. He was settling for threes, 2 for 10 from 3, because he didn't want to go down there and go to work on Gobert, right? Because he looked tired, right? And I understand it's Game 7. You want your best players to go out there and hoop every single play as much as humanly possible. But not everybody has the stamina and the mental and the physical conditioning to go out there and play that many minutes, right? And so you have to kind of pick and choose who you do it to, and you also have to play injuries in a little bit, and wear and tear, and what goes into what happens. Because listen, that's exactly what happened to the New York Knicks, right? They just played clearly too many minutes. You had all these injuries already, right? And I understand, you can't really. Playoffs is like an 8-man, 9-man rotation at most rotation, sometimes 7, depending on how you go. But, they definitely needed a break. You could have definitely utilized that bench more. There was a couple pieces I would have liked to see, get used more off that bench. Some of these younger players, just get them some run, like especially in some of these blowout games, get them some run. Okay, you're down 20, you're down 30. Go give them some run. Give these guys a break because Jalen Brunson's not going to say nothing, but he's going to go out there and play even if they down 30. So again, there's definitely a lot to go on Tom Thibodeau's plate, and him figuring out what's the right amount of minutes to push a player and which players can and can't do it. Okay, so that's definitely one thing that has to be discussed about. But as Jalen Brunson said, the Knicks having a bad season, it was a unsuccessful season. I beg to differ because Jalen Brunson, you lost Julius Randle, you lost Mitchell Robinson, and then you were looked at as a team that wasn't going to continue that same success you had in the first half of the regular season pre-All-Star break, right? Like you weren't expected to maintain that as you being the lonesome player on that team, right? Then you get OG Anunoby, and then your team goes 14 and one with OG Anunoby. As soon as he gets there, you start beating all these good teams. You start competing against these good teams. Boom. Your team looks great defensively. OG's playing great. Jalen Brunson's playing great. Dante DiVincenzo shooting at a 40% clip from 3, and then you lose OG Anunoby, right? Towards the end of the season. You see Isaiah Hartenstein excel and thrive, and then you see Mitchell Robinson come back and then just to get hurt in the playoffs. And then Bogdanovich, someone you traded for at the trade deadline, and he comes in, first game of the playoffs, he's injured, he's out for the rest of the season, right? And so you had all these injuries, and how understaffed you were for this series. Listen, you should be happy. Right, Game 7 in Madison Square Garden, no better place to be on earth, right? You had the celebrities out, you had the fans out, you had the Knicks legends out. The energy was there, the atmosphere was there, and they supported you, right? They understood what was going on. They are logical and great hardcore blood. I don't even know what I was trying to think of, but hardcore fans, elite fans, determined fans, consistent. You're not gonna treat you bad when you lose a game like that, right? Because they understand the circumstance. Julius Randle going out and underperforming in the playoffs is a different situation. But, you went in there, you excelled expectations. You were one game away from the Eastern Conference Finals single-handedly, I would say, for Jalen Brunson, when you really talk about superstar or elite scorer talent on that team, no OG Anunoby, no Mitchell Robinson, no Bogdanovich. And then you had Josh Hart, excelling expectations. You had Miles McBride, who came up and just gave you 21 points every other night. These players were playing. They were doing their best to win. And obviously, you just fall short when you're a bit understaffed and you're missing that number 2 guy or another number 1, however you want to put it, right? But it definitely hurts when you don't have another guy like that. Like a Julius Randle, you can give the ball to and go to some work, right? Because you give Julius Randle limited shots, he's going to be working a bit more for every time he gets the ball, right? So, all these things go into play and for what the Knicks did. But the Knicks should be proud of what they did. You have pieces going into next season. You have time to get healthy. You have a solidified superstar in Jalen Brunson, whether some people want to say it or not, right? He's done remarkable things against the best quality of teams, right? So he deserves to be considered a superstar. And now you have the draft capital, right, to go out there and go get another superstar, bring somebody over here, right? You heard Donovan Mitchell rumors last year. Excuse me, I just knocked my microphone, Jesus. But you heard Donovan Mitchell trade rumors last year, right? And now, there's going to be some places, some superstars that are going to be free agents, LeBron, although I don't think he's leaving LA, he's still a free agent. Paul George, there are some key players that are going to be on the market. You have a chance to maybe sign somebody, maybe trade and sign, whatever. You have the opportunity to go out here and to add to your team and to really make yourself a legitimate contender going into next year. So no, I do not think the New York Knicks season was a success. I think it was a disappointment of a year, right? And then here we go. The Steph Curry of basketball, Caitlin Clark, right? Here we go. Listen. I know the WNBA fans are absolutely happy that Caitlin Clark is struggling a little bit. I mean, not all of them, right? Majority of the WNBA fans and the people who support Caitlin Clark, I assume, want to see her succeed and thrive as a player. But there's definitely some WNBA players going into the season that said that they were kind of hating on her. You know, they were nagging at her a little bit, like, "Oh, this girl's coming in with all this hype. They're saying she's worth all this money in NIL and she's signing all these contracts and things like that, right?" And so, there's a lot of criticism, and a lot of people, all eyes are on Caitlin Clark to dominate from day one, right? Which is an unfair thing, but it is the hype that came around her name, right? Like, it is just that, it's like LeBron and Wemby coming into the league. You have to come out here. They want you to dominate. They want you to look impressive from the get, right? So again, she's a young player on a very young team, and now you look at your numbers, right? Because she's had a bit of a struggle. 4 games through, she's had a bit of a struggle. I basically watched majorities of those 4 games, right? And she still has the ability to score at will, when things are going right. Like, she has like Klay Thompson, like confidence, like, right? Like, every shot is, I'm taking my shots regardless, right? She kind of calmed down a little bit, due to some people saying that she wasn't playmaking enough, she wasn't getting her team involved enough. So there was that going around, and then she, stopped shooting as much, but still not afraid to take any shot anywhere on the court, right? And then still trying to play make. I mean, the biggest issue with her stats as it is basically the turnovers. I mean, you're averaging 6.5 turnovers a game, which a bit is inflated because of the first game you had 10 turnovers, right? So that definitely has to go into play. But I mean, 17, 4, and 5.5 assists a game. You're shooting 41.2% from the field, 34% from 3, so you're not shooting very great. You're not thriving as much as you would like, But in her defense, if you watch these games, you look at Caitlin Clark and what she's playing with. She does have Aaliyah Boston, who was one of the best young players in the WNBA last year, right? So they are going to be the duo of the future. Like, Aaliyah Boston is that type of player, right? So unfortunately, she did miss the game-winning shot last night, which just happens. They almost beat Connecticut Sun at home, but it was a very close game. But so you kind of have your 2 like franchise players in Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark. You know what they can be. And Caitlin Clark, even though she's a bit inefficient, the potential and the talent is there. The shot making, the shot creating ability is there. You watch her shoot, everything she shoots with confidence. Like, I seen her take a shot yesterday from half court, right? A foot, like 3 steps away from half court. Her teammate just rolls it right back and boom, and didn't even hit the net, right through the basket. Didn't even hit the net. Was one of the nicest shots I've seen a woman shoot in the WNBA, right? And so that was something very impressive that I seen. But again, this team is going to be fine. Like, I expect them to thrive. They're a young team. They were the worst team in WNBA the last 2 years, basically. So obviously, they have some building blocks they have to go over, but you got yourself a player in Caitlin Clark. We know that. Everybody knows that, right? You watch the games, right? So it's kind of just everybody else accepted the fact, because I do see a lot of hate when she comes out here as a bad game, or specifically game 1. You had people talking about the refs, right? Because the refs were kind of giving her a little bit of issues with, they were fouling her early in the first. They were giving her ticky-tack fouls in the first 60 seconds of the game, right? So there's a lot of things that going into Caitlin Clark when you're coming into the WNBA with this much hype, right? You're going into a team that's not so good, and you're supposed to be a game changer immediately, which is not a good expectation, because not everybody can do that, play styles and the people you're playing with, coaches, all that matters. The system matters, right? But obviously, defensively, when you look at other teams approach her defensively, she gets all the attention. She's getting the best defender. She's getting a lot of attention. They know they don't want to let her shoot, right? So it's not like these girls are out here not respecting her, because they are. If you watch them, how they play defense against her, right? Like, they come up every time she touches the ball because they know she can shoot it from damn near anywhere. So, again. But big shout out to Caitlin Clark. Was the first woman, I believe, in the WNBA to sign with Wilson, if I read that correctly. But she did sign with Wilson yesterday. So big shout out to her. Again, she's just continuing to grow, and it's going to help the WNBA blossom, like I've spoken about before. So big shout out to Caitlin Clark. Wish nothing but success for her and the WNBA and the Indiana Fever. Yeah. But with that being said, if you haven't watched her play, you should definitely check her out. She's a human highlight reel. She really is. But I want to get into the NBA all defensive teams right, and the NBA all-rookie teams and just give my little brief rundown on how I think about them, because obviously they came out today, earlier, right before I recorded this video, right? So I thought I'd bring them out and just give you my honest opinion on some of these players, right? So, I mean, listen, All-NBA 2024 Kia All-NBA first team. You have Chet Holmgren, Jaime Jaquez, Brandon Miller, Brandon Pozminski from the Golden State Warriors. Sorry if I butchered that. And Victor Wembanyama, right? Obviously, Victor Wembanyama was Rookie of the Year, right? Was sensational, generational freak. Chet Holmgren just was the number 2 guy on the one of the youngest teams in the West, the 1 seed, right? These guys were 2 games away from the Western Conference Finals. Like, a very great team where he showed up, and defensively he's remarkable. I mean, you got 2 elite rim protectors in this little, all rookie team, right? And then Brandon Miller, again, just exceeding expectations. I mean, this guy came out here. He was the number 1 option for majority of the season, with LaMelo Ball being hurt and Miles Bridges missing some time, and he really thrived. He's very talented. He holds his team accountable. So I wish nothing for the best for him going forward, and he beat that expectations. He beat the whole Scoot Henderson was a better pick than me. He outperformed Scoot Henderson, who wasn't even on this list, right? So shout out to Brandon Miller for absolutely hooping this year. I'm a fan. I'm showing you love him. I message your game, right? And then Jaime Jaquez, who, again, I mean, if they had Jimmy Butler, maybe they could have made another miracle run. But he was phenomenal, right? He would come off the bench. He would start sometimes. He would do his job. He can score, right? He could kind of ball handle. He could play make a little bit. And he buys into the defensive heat culture, right? 4-year guy from UCLA. I mean, he stepped in and flourished right away, So big shout out to him. But again, I mean, that's a solid first team, especially with the fact that, there's not nobody else, like maybe honorable. I was going to talk about Asar Thompson, but obviously he was just not very good offensively, which I think kind of hurt him. But defensively, he's a monster, right? So is his brother, which is actually on this other list. But all rookie second team, you have Keontae George out of Utah, G.G. Jackson, Derek Lively, Amen Thompson, and Carson Wallace, which I think that's a great list, right? Those guys have played key, crucial moments and good basketball for all their teams. Carson Wallace did it for OKC as the 1 seed in the playoffs. He showed up in the playoffs, right? He wasn't getting crazy minutes, but when you pass that ball to him, he was going to knock down shots, and he did just that. And then Amen Thompson, you kind of seen him flourish when being the primary ball handler in Houston, right? Being his ability to play make, running that second unit. You seen him thrive. He still, just like his brother, needs to get a consistent jumper. Like, he needs to develop his jumper over the years, because it's such as a 3-point driven league. But he's nothing but great things to think about this guy. I mean, they have such a great elite backcourt with Jalen Green and him and these young pieces. And Houston's just got so much potential on this team, over the years, especially with the new head coach you just got, right? You guys look good defensively. You were respectable. You weren't very good on the road, but you were a good home team. You still have Şengün. And this team is just going to be very interesting to see how they go next this offseason. Do you move pieces for another legitimate superstar? Do you do something like that? Because you have the draft capital and the players to do so, right? But huge shout out to him. Derek Lively, again, was one of the key reasons why they won games 6 and 5, right? He was out here dominating on the glass, played remarkable, as a rookie. Again, you don't see that all the time, right? Especially again with Luka, and as the year has gone on, he's only gotten better. And then you have G.G. Jackson, who, again, played phenomenal basketball for Memphis. You seen, obviously he had a little bit more shots. So the efficiency wasn't remarkable, but he still played great. Not having John Morant, not having Desmond Bane, or for the majority of the year kind of hurts. So he did have a lot of extra opportunities to shot, but I think it's going to help him develop for this upcoming year. And then Keontae George, I mean, again, played great basketball and a not very good basketball team. Great playmaking ability. He started getting more consistent shooting that 3 ball and getting himself buckets, which is great for him. Again, I think he's going to be a great point guard of the future, and depending on what they do, right? But I think he's going to be a great point guard of the future for the Utah Jazz. And then we get into all defensive teams, where this is where stuff gets interesting, right? But the first 5 players on the list: Bam Adebayo, Anthony Davis, Rudy Gobert, Herb Jones, and Victor Wembanyama, right? Like, first things first, Victor Wembanyama, like, you kind of knew this was coming because his steals and blocks, like, ratio is just, like, absolutely insane, averaging the most blocks in a game for the regular season. And it's just his ability, his versatility, bro. Like, if you've never sat down and just watched Wembanyama highlights in the league or just watched him play basketball, just go watch him play because his freakishness, his length, his ability to basically cover 1 through 5, and his ability to guard the perimeter, and he's so long, so athletic that he can just cover so much ground, and he's just defensively, he's such an issue with teams. And you watch some of the stuff he does, it's crazy. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's just so fun to watch somebody like that come up like that, a different style of big man, and just dominates, right? And he's not scared of the best bigs in basketball either, right? He goes at Nikola Jokic, he goes at Şengün, he goes at all these other guys, he goes at AD, all this stuff, which I love to see the competitiveness from him. And then you got Rudy Gobert. I mean, what else I got to speak about? 4-time defensive player of the year. He's on one of the best. He's the defensive anchor to one of the best defenses in basketball with Minnesota. He's been doing that all his life. It's a defense or nothing from Rudy, so he's got to be great at something. And then Bam Adebayo, I mean, just such a remarkable and versatile defender. Again, you can put him on the best guy on the perimeter, and he's going to do his best job. You can have him guard the center, although he's a bit undersized, he can still hold his own, So, again, and he buys into the Heat culture. He embraces what the Heat culture is, and I think he's just a remarkable defender. And one of these years, I hope he gets a depoy because he deserves it. He just plays such great defense, and he's just such a great player. But then Anthony Davis is also on this list. Obviously, I don't gotta say nothing else, man. He's been robbed of depoys before. Arguably could have been robbed from depoy this year, right? The numbers with Anthony Davis on the court don't scream depoy or elite defense, right? Which, again, we don't understand how that's the case because we see what he does defensively, right? And I think that has more to do with the lack of defense. We have some other players, so not having Vanderbilt also doesn't help that defensively. But again, we know he's an elite rim protector. He's one of the best defenders in basketball. So that's not even a shocker. Defensive player of the year coming, loading next year, hopefully for my boy, because he deserves one. And then we got Herb Jones from the Pelicans. Again, just such an elite perimeter defender. I mean, you've seen him do his thing in OKC, against OKC in the playoffs, with no Zion. He definitely stepped up defensively. But yeah, I mean, they have so many long, good, defensive-minded wings over there in New Orleans. It's actually kind of insane. But then we got the second team, all-defensive team. Alex Caruso, Drew Holiday, Jaden McDaniels, Jalen Suggs, and Derek White. I mean, again, this is just an absolutely remarkable list. Alex Caruso, like, he's one of the best. He could be in the first team. Like, he's good. He's that good of a perimeter defender. He's that good defensively. And this year, he's developed a little bit more of an offensive bag for himself. And then Drew Holiday, I don't got to speak about nothing else. He's been in these conversations every single year of his career. Like, he's a remarkable defender. That's why Boston went to go trade for him, And then Jalen Suggs, huge shout out to him, right, to get some hardware in there. Second, I know it's second team all defensive, but that's remarkable, as a smaller guard for the Magic, that's just great for you, man. I'm a huge fan of Jalen Suggs and his game. He's a big optic fan as well, so I gotta support that guy. Anyone who supports the green wall, that guy's my guy right there. But then we got Derek White, well deserved. I believe this is his second one because I believe last year he also had one. But again, great season. Was one of the better players on that Boston team. He was getting all-star votes. So this guy has had the best year of his career. Remarkable player, remarkable year as well. And then Jaden McDaniels, who I understand, Jaden McDaniels probably in the regular season didn't have as much defensive, advanced stats that are going his way in these categories, and some things like that might have hurt him from getting in the first team. Although the first team was kind of elite, I'm not gonna lie, that first team was kind of insane. So I get it. You got the 4 best defensive centers in the first team, so I get it. But I just want to give a huge shout out for Jaden McDaniels for what he did to KD, right? Anthony Edwards saying, answering the media, they said, we got KD. Who do you got? He said, they got KD, we got Jaden McDaniels. And Jaden McDaniels went out there and stood about that business and locked up that entire series. He played so good defensively against that team the entire series. So, man, I mean, huge shout out to him. Again, I think he elevated his game defensively when it came to the playoffs, which is kind of crazy to see for him and that young team. And shout out to him. But the last thing I'm going to talk about of the episode of the Young Rich Pod, new name, gotta use it. got to use it now. But the last thing of discussion, I want to talk about a little about college football, right? It's going to be the only college football related topic of today's video. But college football, I mean, I love it. People love it. It's one of the biggest growing sports, college sports, right? And one of the biggest growing just sports in general, right? It's growing. You're getting more viewership. You're getting more broadcasting, more bigger names, and the city, this decade of NIL, the decade of all this other stuff, and the possibilities for college football, right, is endless, right? You're expanding the college football playoff. You're doing all the right steps into creating a good environment, a competitive environment that allows teams to come out here and compete, right, and have a chance at something that's most teams, you have to be either the 1 or the 2 seed for majority of our lives, and now you added it to 4. Like Florida State, for example, you go undefeated, but you lost your starting quarterback, so they don't respect you enough. Like all these things go into what makes college football so great and what makes college football the growing in the direction it's growing at and such a fast pace. And I understand the NIL will cause some issues, right? I've seen multiple reports today that a couple of them I'm not even going to discuss because they had more to do with individual players getting into a lot of trouble, things that's not even important to be discussed right now, right? But the year of the NIL, the decade of the NIL, money is everything. You've heard it from Nick Saban. You've heard it from Kirby Smart. You've heard it from, Lane Kiffin. You've heard it from, why am I forgetting his name? Lincoln Riley, right? Like, that's my guy. I don't know why I forgot his name. But regardless, the money is everything in college football now. You are seeing players get brought from school to school based on money. Money is what's going to keep you there. Money is what's going to bring you there, right? And now you see players on Alabama, they wanted Nick Saban to double their money, double their NIL, or we're not coming back. They didn't want to play for the Alabama culture. They don't want to play for the chance at the pros. They just wanted to get paid, and they weren't worried about anything else, right? So I mean, this creates just a bad environment, if it's not kept under wraps, right? But one thing I did want to discuss, right, because it is, if you're a college football fan, is huge, right? I mean, listen, Jaden Rashada, 5-star quarterback coming out of Pittsburgh. I mean, he committed to Florida initially, right? Decommitted, went to Arizona State. Now he's currently at Georgia, UGA with Kirby Smart, right? But listen, I mean, Jaden Rashada is suing Florida, the Florida head coach, the Florida head of NIL, the recruiting director, all these, I believe a list of 5 or 6 people on that Florida staff, head coach, head of NIL director included, right? But he is out here suing these guys for a $15 million NIL deal that fell through, right? And that is just like, this is the first time I've heard anything of it, so I don't know what the next steps are. I'll be waiting to hear about that. But, I mean, this is just crazy to think about, right? From like literally 10 years ago, you're in a situation where if you're out here talking and asking for money, boom, you're banned, your eligibility gone, you're never going to play college football again. Like, this is... And to nowadays, now we have players, one of the biggest NIL, one of the most favorite NIL quarterbacks of the 2024 class, 2022 class, right? Younger guy for sure, right? But like the fact that players are out here with the ability to sue teams and coaches for NIL money they didn't get, for deals falling through, like this is just insane to think about, bro. Like I understand people are getting paid, and there's a lot of players that are just focused about their money and not playing ball, right? But because that's the opportunity, the percentage telling you you're not going to make it to the NFL, you're not going to last very long in the NFL if you do make it, so might as well get your money now and not even worry about the other stuff, right? And listen, this is just insane to think about, right? I mean, you're just sitting there. You're not even going to school there. This is you've been to your 3rd school, basically. I mean, he never enrolled into Florida, but he was committed to Florida. So basically, you're on your 3rd school, right? You carry a lot of NIL value, right? Which is the main reason you went to ASU in the first place. They offered you the most money, NIL-wise. They basically bought you out. And now you're sitting here complaining about a deal that didn't fall through for 2 years ago. And, and now this just looks like a big old mess, you know what I'm saying? And the fact that players can go out here and sue for a deal that fell through, clearly fell through. Like he says it fell through. Everyone says it fell through. That's why he didn't go to Florida. That's why he didn't commit to, he decommitted from Florida, right? And the fact that college players have this type of ability to do that stuff. Again, I don't know if any contracts were signed or any of that stuff, but I mean, there's just a lot of powers to these players now, because at the end of the day, it still is college, right? It's just a lot of power to these players, and it can become an issue if not taken care of right. So again, I hope whoever was in the wrong in the situation, admits they were in the wrong, and whoever's in the wrong in the situation gets put straight, and whoever got done dirty, can get the benefit from this situation, right? But it's just crazy to think about how college football has just changed and transitioned to something completely different that we're not used to, that I'm not accustomed to. I'm still sitting here listening to people talk about how much money they're making in college football and how much they're worth, and it's just crazy to see. Again, it's great for the athletes. It's great for the marketing and sports in general, especially because a lot of college football are watched. Like college football is a highly watched sport, right? It's on them. You get your own day to watch the national championship game and the bowl games. Like it's dedicated to college football. You're getting college football on those days. Like, it's college football Saturdays, college football, all that stuff. So again, let me know what y'all think about that, because I think that's just kind of crazy just to hear about that, But with that being said, I hope y'all enjoyed today's episode of the Young Rich podcast. Check me out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Like and 5-star rate the show because it helps the algorithm. If you're watching this on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on post notifications. I'll be posting 2 times weekly. And if you don't already, go subscribe to my second channel, Young Rich Talk Sports. The link will be in the description below. If you want to follow my socials on TikTok, those will also be in the description below as well. With that being said, I hope y'all had a great day and appreciate all the support I've been getting so far. So with that being said, we out.